Hey, how are you? My name's Earl Crabtree, and I'm going to be doing some of these little movie chat, theoried video things. I don't know. I'm usually up pretty late, so uh, usually when I get my work done, I like to watch a lot of stuff, and sometimes it gets my mind racing. Anyway, I've been thinking about the new Star Wars saga that's been coming out. So most specifically the Last Jedi that just came out because a lot of people weren't crazy about it. I still sort of am mixed. I'm like 60% I like it, maybe like 65% I like it, and 35% I don't like it. There are aspects about it that I one respect as a filmmaker. One of the things I really enjoy about the film was its risk taking. So I think that's necessary to sort of set up maybe like a new wave, a new kind of like branch, set of roots going a new direction that could be cool and fun instead of it just always being about sort of the same stuff. For instance, no one really likes the prequels because of all the CGI. The story could have been pretty good, I think. But I believe at that time, nobody had the balls to step in and be like, hey, George, this is a really bad idea. Back in the day, he wasn't yet George, so there was a lot of people that attributed to those movies being so awesome, the great model work, all that stuff, you know? There's a lot of good, awesome people involved, and a lot of people think the best Star Wars movie ever was Empire. I would agree, and he didn't even direct that, or the Return of the Jedi. So, anyway, with that in mind, think about this. We all know J.J. Abrams' first Star Wars rendition into the new saga has a ton of similarities to the original 1977 Star Wars film A New Hope, in terms of characters meeting up, going off together, having a really, one of a main character sort of take them there and then die. A huge explosion from Starkiller Base, in the Death Star. It's just, there's a lot of, it's very similar. However, the prequels really kind of fucked up the whole Star Wars universe. I mean, if you take the first three films and you look at them, the model work, the prosthetics, the electronics, the animatronics, it doesn't feel like even the same universe. So one thing they did when they brought in the new saga was, they brought that back. And it does feel like the same universe. It just feels like a more futuristic version. And I think that J.J. Abrams' first rendition of this saga is sort of paying homage to where we were supposed to go and what the prequels were supposed to be. And the movie was still good. There's a lot of similarities, but I think it was a really good way to introduce the new characters. Now, one thing Empire Strikes Back did really well that I don't believe The Last Jedi did very good at all was it allowed the characters to continue growing. For instance, I feel like in The Last Jedi, there wasn't any character growth. It was just like, well, it sort of was just a story and a lot of shit happening and battles and voyages and journeys, but there wasn't really, at least in my opinion, any character growth. It sort of just seemed like the director threw the story at us and was just like, well, you already know who these people are, so I don't have to develop them anymore. But I think that was wrong. So, sort of like at the end of the movie, like there was these love connections that I don't know. I thought Rey was gonna get together with I can't think of his number. The stormtrooper that came from whatever. I thought they were gonna get together, and then he got together with that Asian chick at the end. I think I don't know. And then they had that weird hug. It was just really strange to me. Plus, all the way out through the movie, he kept saying, he was trying to escape again, and I just like I don't understand. And then at the end, he wanted to sacrifice himself. I just don't understand sort of his character, and I am blanking on his name. I'm just completely blanking on his name, but that's fine. You know what I'm talking about. So But risk-taking maneuvers such as the connection with Rey and Kylo, I thought was pretty neat. I thought the death of the new Emperor. I am blanking on everyone's names right now. I have no idea why. Snoke. I didn't see that coming. I thought they were going to team up, and then they didn't, and then the conflict continued. I dug that. Then for a long time, I really enjoyed Luke's kind of owning of Kylo, and it used so much of the Force it, like, killed him, I suppose. That's fine, but what I hated was his connection with Rey. It made simply zero sense to me. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand that he had just given up, because in the first saga, he was the guy that helped Vader restore peace to the galaxy. He was the beacon of hope that went when Yoda to his friends when Yoda even told him not to. And then now he's just this grumpy, horrible, weird, awkward, strange dude. He barely even taught Rey anything, it seemed like to me. But then he kind of, like, he kind of sort of redeemed himself in the end by saving the rebellion. But it's like, I don't know, if you would have just been involved, wouldn't you have been able to save them and do some cool shit like this along the way instead of having to do one big thing at the end and die? I don't know. It seemed really weird to me, and it seemed like sort of a really sad and just unfulfilling way to see him die. However, there are some speculations I'm having now. So we know that JJ is going to be doing the last film, The Rise of Skywalker, which that's even more confusing in my opinion, because now I thought this series was going to kind of go away from that. We know that Leia has to die in this next one because she's dead in real life. Carrie Fisher, R.I.P. I was like, all right, we're finally going away from that. That's going to go away, right? No more of that. No Vader, no Luke, no Han, no Leia. I mean, this like everyone's dying. So now the movie's called Rise of Skywalker. So, for instance, maybe how, like, in Roman society, people were called Caesars. So maybe it's just going to be a term that you call someone that's a Jedi or powerful or something like that. I hope, because I'm really hoping that Rey isn't, like, Luke's daughter or something. How he would have known that, right? Or I don't know. It all seems really strange. The Rise of Skywalker. So I don't know what that means. Then, of course, if you've seen the trailer for it, you hear Palpatine's voice, or his laughter. So I guess that is his voice, but you hear that, so you know he's going to play some sort of substantial role in the film. He even came out at the premiere and had them roll it again. I don't know if it's going to be sort of like Beyond the Grave, sort of like Obi-Wan, because you hear Ben Kenobi say Rey in the first film when she's having sort of her weird flashback when she touches the lightsaber. So you actually hear Ben Kenobi's voice. So some people are thinking maybe it's Ben Kenobi's granddaughter. That seems weird to me too, because you never met his family or daughter or son, and never even said he had it. So that seems wrong. But potentially Palpatine isn't alive. Maybe he's just super powerful in the Force, and he's sort of speaking through the Force realms like Yoda does. Qui-Gon did to Obi-Wan to teach him when he looked after Luke. Blah, 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 blah. So Palpatine did, in the third film, Revenge of the Sith, speak about his master, Darth Plagueis, and how ironic it was that he couldn't save himself from death, but he could bring others back. So potentially there is Palpatine found a way to save himself from death. I don't know. That's possible. But then it's like, where's he been this whole time? Who the fuck is Snoke? What was his importance? There's so many plot holes here. I'm hoping the film really kind of does a good job of maybe filling up some of the holes that's left, because it's really starting to be confusing. If Palpatine really is alive, it's like, what's going on? That doesn't make any sense. But I had one thought that I thought would be an interesting way to approach what I'm hoping Rise of the Skywalker might potentially be. Because you do see them in the trailer going to the Death Star. So that's where my thought came from. Well, maybe they're there, and that's such a predominant dome of Emperor Palpatine's existence. Maybe they hear him in there or something. Maybe he resides inside of that somehow through the Force, but he's not really alive. That would be cool. Number two, what if what the fuck if Palpatine had a family? That's possible. I mean, he wouldn't bring his family on this battleship, right? So you would know about him. That would make sense. And what if Rey is related to Palpatine? I know that that's kind of wacky, but what if that's the case? And what if all these things were put in place by Luke, by somebody to sort of hide who Rey was? Maybe she was taken from her family and put on Jakku with this junk trader family to protect her and watch her and hide her the same exact way that Luke was hidden, but Luke was a good guy, but not saying that Rey would be a bad person, but she came from a really bad place and no one wants to know who she is and use her as a weapon, potentially. That could be possibly it. And I don't know, but maybe as Luke could hear Obi-Wan and Yoda through the Force, maybe potentially as time went on, all the big gap between the last movie of the original saga and the first movie of the new saga, things happened, and Obi-Wan and Yoda told Luke about this girl, and he knew who she was, and he knew her power. And if you remember, in Revenge of the Sith, there was this weird moment where she went down into the darkness, right? You remember that? She went down into the darkness. She was trying to find herself, and she kept seeing like the string of who her consciousness was, and it was real strange. And remember that? It seemed pretty dark and weird and eerie to me. Almost like she's finally opening a gap of the evil powers of her family's past, and maybe she's a Palpatine. I don't know. And maybe now that pathway's open when she goes to the Death Star looking for whatever the fuck in the movie they're looking for, maybe that's how Palpatine sort of enters her realm. And, I mean, there could be this big twist where she becomes the bad person and Kylo becomes the good person. I don't fucking know. I don't know what's going to happen with all of that. I don't even know who Snoke was at this point. All I do know is I remember that George Lucas in the original script, when they were going into Return of the Jedi, had played with the idea of making Luke turn heel. Actually, there was even a line in a rough draft where when Luke kills Vader, he would put his hat on and say, "I am now Vader," or something weird like that. That would have ruined it all. It would have just been horrible. However, done right, if done right, and I also think there's been foreshadowing in this last movie for that. Snoke was in her mind, right? So it does show that the villains of this galaxy of Star Wars do seem to have like pretty badass powers comparatively to the Jedi. So whatever they're doing, it's sort of working. But I think if you kind of have this wacky heel turn in Rise of the Skywalker, there potentially could be like this huge spin-off, and I know that Disney wants to make all their money back, $4.2 billion they spent on buying this, for all these other movies. I don't know, but that's sort of what my mind has been speculating. Just food for thought. But the trailer, as it stands for Rise of the Skywalker, really didn't excite me that much for it. It didn't really show a lot at all, story-wise. And that is probably why I think that she does a heel turn. Usually because if you remember the other two trailers, there was a lot of more storytelling aspects within the trailers. It was like, well, she fights this dude at some point in the end, and this happens here, and they escape from that place. There wasn't a lot of that. It was like miscellaneous flying around and long shots, and there was just, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think the reason is they're like, they got their safety belt on. They're driving real like slow. They're going 55 and a 60 kind of thing. They don't want to give away anything because they know how the internet and people pick it apart, like I'm doing right now. So, that was just my idea. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll do some more of these things in the future. But for now, I'm going to say adios, amigos, and I will not go over 15 minutes. Bye.